and then chapters nested in a whole book. And then not just the whole bloody book, because that's not enough. The book itself has to be nested in the shared literary experience of the audience. I have to assume, if I'm writing a book, that there's a certain amount of culture that we share. Because otherwise I'd have to explain absolutely everything about absolutely everything, and I can't. And so the book doesn't work unless it's in a culture that's composed of maybe 1,000 books in some sense that are widely known by all of us, even if we haven't read them. I can assume that the reader is a mechanism that can understand what I've written, and that's part of where the meaning is too. And so that's all nested together, all of that, to make it meaningful for me to sit down in the morning and concentrate so foolishly in some sense on moving my fingers up and down on a keyboard. Right? What's meaningful about that? Well, nothing. Who cares if I type a letter? A single letter. Yeah, well, how about a word? How about the right word? How about the right phrase? How about the right sentence? Well, every movement outward, more broadly, makes it more meaningful. And if that whole structure is coherent, then all of the small actions become associated with the meaning of all of the large-scale actions, right? I'm not just typing letters. I'm writing a book. Why? Okay, then we get broader. This is the bullseye. This is the structure of the bullseye. The center might be the letter, you know. That's one way of looking at it. That's the highest resolution thing. I've got to get that exactly right. And then it's nested inside all of these other structures. Well, I'm an educator. Okay, so I'm hoping the book will be educational. Well, why? Well, because maybe it would be better for people to be educated than not to be, so that they don't have to suffer so stupidly, and so they could be less malevolent, and that the world would be a less brutal place. That would be all right. So that's part of my goal. I'm a clinician. I want to fulfill that part of my moral obligation to justify my privileged position in the social hierarchy, right? I'm a scientist. I want to test my hypotheses and see if they're correct so I can advance the scientific domain and push human knowledge a little bit farther out into the unknown, right? And I'm doing that maybe because I want to be a good person, something like that. Okay, so now we're a long ways out in the moral hierarchy. And so now we might think about, well, what does it mean to be a good person? Does that mean something? Well, you think it does. Because you know people who are good people, and you know people who aren't good people, and you make a qualitative distinction between them, and you know when you're being a good person, and when you're not, and you make a qualitative distinction between that too. So I don't think we have to have a discussion about whether or not good and bad people exist. We might have a discussion about how you distinguish between them, but that's a different issue. So here's some ideas, and this is what we'll end off with. What does a good person do? They take care of themselves. That's a good thing, you know. You don't want to be a burden to anyone else. Sometimes you're going to have to be, but most of the time, maybe it'd be better if you were a net positive, you know, and rely on people when you have to. And so that means don't be so damn useless and constrain some of your malevolence. And that's a good, meaty, bloody war to get involved in. It's not trivial. It gives you something to do when you get up in the morning. And then it might be the same with your social organization, your family. It's like your family could use some work, man, just like everybody's family, and you might be able to help. And the company you work for, same thing. Blind, willfully blind, stupid, corrupt, going in the wrong direction. Not entirely. You know, I mean, things work pretty well for how haphazard the world is in some sense. I'm not trying to be overly pessimistic, and I'm certainly not claiming that we live in an oppressive patriarchy, but like there's work to do in most organizations. A little honesty and a little hard work on your part might straighten that thing out just a little bit, and God only knows what the consequences of that would be across time. And then, you know, there's natural worries that you might want to take care of. There's diseases to conquer, and there's children to take care of, and there's food to provide, and all of the things that go along with that, so that you could involve yourself in taming and regulating the natural world, and that would be a good thing. So there's 3 sources of meaning, right? Get yourself under control. See what you can do about the tyranny of culture, and see what you can do about the civilization of nature, right? That's the construction of a walled garden. That's what paradise means, to get the balance between civilization and nature right. That's your goal, so people can live in there in peace and harmony, including you. That's a good goal. And then you think, well, that's going out quite a ways, you know? You're the culture hero who's taking on your own malevolence and ignorance, the tyranny of your culture and the cruelty of nature. Great. We need more people like you. Go for it. And then maybe we can go one stage outside of that. And this is as far as I can go with it.